the legends over there have told me a little something about you. I guess you all come from a athletic background, right? What do we got here? Football? Amateur wrestling? Gymnastics? So I guess you're all here because whatever your real passion is didn't really work out for you, right? And now you thought, hey, let me try that wrestling thing. Might be easy. Just pretend a little bit, right? If you just do it because you want to be a superstar, then you're not gonna make it if that's your primary goal. It's like you gotta do it because you love to do it. What's your goal here?
To be the best that I can.
Yeah?
Inspire people through telling a story in the ring.
Yeah?
By entertaining them.
Okay. Maybe you start to find some grit in yourself because nobody cares if you want to try to be the best here. I'm gonna give it my all. Nobody cares.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
The audio that you just heard comes from A&E's programming provided by WWE, of course. WWE LFG, Legends and Future Greats. And it was their current, as of this recording, world champion Gunther addressing some trainees or recruits, if you will. And honestly, there's full disclosure, I do not watch LFG on a regular basis. It's certainly not on TV. If I see anything from it, it's like what I just got there. It'll pop up on my YouTube feed. They may have something that I find interesting, and I'll click it and like, okay, let me just see what they're talking about here. So I don't watch the show in and of the show. I do, I catch some of those things online, and largely because I'm not home when that's happening. So, like I said, a little bit of full disclosure. But when that popped up on my, I was like, oh man, Gunther, because I like Gunther. Gunther is a phenomenal wrestler, and I don't even take what they said in this clip as like, oh well, this has taught me that Gunther loves wrestling. No, I felt that way a while ago. Even when it was Walter, put a little V in there. But even back then, you felt like this dude is into what he's into. This is the business that he was meant to be in. And when he transformed his body and he became Gunther, it was just all the more evident that this is what he does. He's a pro wrestler. So when I heard the audio of him, it wasn't necessarily, well, I can't say that he didn't down talk. He did have some words with some people. And Gunther's a kind of a sharp guy. One of the clips that I didn't put in there was he talked to an Olympic gold medalist, a young lady there. Gosh, I wish I could remember her name. And he praised her for being a Olympic gold medalist. And she got that in wrestling. Imagine that. But then he ends that conversation, but it doesn't really pay the bills, does it? But the thing that caught my attention with that mostly was the fact that it's like all of y'all came from some other background which clearly didn't work out for you, so you decided to get this wrestling thing a try. Like, that might sound a little familiar there. Maybe it's not a case of what the other thing didn't work out, but they certainly aren't where they wanted to be in there at some point. I guess, there's no secret. I'm talking about some of the people that have answered the ads to go and participate in the WOW, and then 5 and 6 months later, they're on national TV rumbling around, and then getting themselves hurt, and then off of TV for another 5 or 6 months. I felt that bit of audio was appropriate to just start off the show as I am getting myself caught up. But look, I am certainly not going to say that no one that goes to WoW's training, and I'm gonna bring this back around to WoW. I'm not gonna say that no one that goes there had no desire to be a wrestler, and to some degree, but I do feel like there's probably a fair amount, and I think it's fair to say this, there's a fair amount of people that's there that only got there because they're looking to either pad their resume or it's something to do for a little while, and then when WoW was over with, whether they leave WoW in their own power or WoW is done with them, then they'll just move on. Wrestling probably is not their overall passion. There will be some, maybe one or two, that will decide to continue on. But the ones that are just trained directly through WoW and answer the backstage ad, it doesn't have a great track record of them wanting to continue. WoW, remember, WoW's been doing this for a while. Yes, they had 14 years off in between that. That's part of it that they really don't, talk about. But in between that time, if you include their original group from 20 years ago to, well, I guess 24 years ago now, if you include that original group to the ones that they have now, and you calculate all the people that they just hired and trained and gave a gimmick to, and then put them on TV and had them work, a pretty basic match. The track record of people who have left and even attempted to try wrestling beyond that point isn't that high, or the percentage isn't that high. Only two people even come to mind: Jungle Girl and Nikita Lyons. And Lyons, I think she's out of her element, and she discovered that when she went to WWE. I'm not even sure the last time I seen her. I'd be concerned about the next round of cuts. But anyhow, to get off of that, I just thought that that little clip was somewhat relevant, not necessarily to this episode, but just to we'll call it the culture that WoW was kind of created. And that was a long opening for me to say, hey, you're listening to the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green, and I have been running around over this last month. I mean, I've been running. Never mind the fact that at work it is March Madness, which for us, because we are one of the stations, well, we are one of several hubs that will run that, it is dominated and taken over a lot of our time. I was actually, I won't say concerned, but I actually did not walk into the building the last couple of weeks since it started, assuming that I would see WoW. I thought if there was a game that went, I had to prepare for a game that go into overtime or something like that. It was still on the air. Surprisingly enough, most of them, as I can recall, have ended on time, and by the time I got there, it was on. But I don't know if I was fully prepared to sit up there and take notes, because I just didn't walk in there wanting to look like I was concentrating on anything else as far as the big people were concerned, other than those games. Because believe me, they come out of the woodwork when they got important stuff that they run in that room: Super Bowl, Grammys, whatever other award shows that we've had, including like I said, March Madness comes around, and we got a championship game Tuesday. And when those things happen, you get a lot of higher ups that start peeking their heads in the room. So the last thing I wanted was to sit there and go, hey, I'm writing down notes for this wrestling show that doesn't pay our bills. But anyhow, I just wanted to share that also as to why I'm a little bit off in timing. March is a hectic month, and it's a birthday month for me. So anyhow, moving on. Rather than to go off into news, views, and updates like I normally would, I'm going to do an abbreviated version of this so that we can get ourselves right on back up to present day. So, that being said, let us move right over directly into the review. And here we are. And it is going to be rewind the time a little bit, because when you listen to this, these things have already aired and been shown to the world. But now it's time to go back over it, and with fresh eyes, and see what we liked and what we didn't, what made sense and what did not. This will be episode 327, a classy world title match. The air date is March 15th. The chronological number, 131. And it opens up with the GOAT, the Colombian GOAT. And I guess that's her first name at this point. Colombian GOAT Paola Mayfield with her best friend, as they have made it very clear, Abilene Maverick. And McClain starts giving the background on Maverick and Mayfield meeting in Vegas. Good on them. And Abilene starts off with a promo. And McClain talks through this promo. I know that Abilene is exaggerating her voice. And I've talked about this on a couple of occasions. So like, oh, it's annoying, but I understand that that's what she does, and that's, how she's trying to portray it. However, having said that, in this particular episode, that promo was more annoying than normal. Normally, I can take it and I can accept it for, that's just what she's putting on, and it's, that's what Abilene Maverick is. She's annoying. She does this. She does that. But I don't know why. In this particular episode, it was so annoying. I mean, under my skin, grating teeth, fingers on the chalkboard, annoying. And if I had the option, I'd have changed the channel. I just did not want to hear her talking. It just sounded so phony and so fake. Like more so than normal. Maybe it's because it was a higher dose of it. Because he got it before the match and he got it after the match, and it was for them lengthy. So typically, like I said, I can take it, I can deal with it, but this episode is like, oh my God, shut up. Please, just shut up. And then to pair that off with her having a conversation with David does not help. It just did. Because, and I don't want to start getting on McClain, fumbling words, changing words, because I've said that I understand there are occasions when you will do that as a commentator or somebody that's on the microphone. You're like, oh, I didn't mean to say that, but this is what I meant. You'll do that. It will happen. Your objective is to minimize the amount of times that you do it. But, that there will come a day at some point in time, if you do it long enough, that you'll say something like, what did I say that for? Or, you'll just kind of fumble it. But I think that he has his fumbles air enough times to where it's like, this probably isn't what you should be doing right now. Like one of the things he said when they was talking about how long ago the stuff was, and I'm sure some of that rests on the fact that he's probably trying to calculate in his mind how far back it is from when we're doing it now, when this airs, opposed to the reality of it, which he might have shot last weekend. It's possible. But he stands there, it's like, many 6 weeks ago. I was like, well, that didn't even make sense. And that's what he said, many 6 weeks ago. And, that it's becoming an ongoing and reoccurring thing with him, where he'll get up and he'll, boldly proclaim something that is stumbled in words or phrased incorrectly or something along those lines. Is just, I don't know, probably not something that he should continue on with at this stage. And that's not a knock on him, but you want your product to be the best as it can, and I think the same rules apply when you're talking about him on the show. As I said with everybody else, they're not judging based on the merit of this one person. When one person on that show starts screwing up, it's painted as everybody screws up. And he adds to that. Last week, and I didn't bring it up then, but what was he? He was talking about Americana during the, I shouldn't say last week, the episode prior to this. But he was talking about Americana during the Penelope Pink Holly Swag versus Big Rigs and Bourbon match, and somewhere in there he's like, Americana took an absence of leave, which, yes, we got the point of what he was talking about, but the phrase is took a leave of absence. You don't take an absence of leave. That doesn't make any sense. Leave of absence is what he intended, but you see what I'm saying. And it's starting to happen more frequently. Like, I had gotten to the point where I expect to hear him say something backwards or fumble it up or do this, that, and the other when he's talking in commentary. I just expect it now because that's what he seems to do. And because he is a boss there, it's not like somebody's going to pull him off and be like, hey, look, either you straighten this up or we got to take you off commentary. Unfortunately, that didn't exist. So he has to just, he doesn't have to. He is going to still be on commentary because he wants to be on commentary. But anyway, this opening segment is essentially the same thing that you would expect from whatever heel happens to get a microphone in WoW, because it's the only point of contention that they may have outside of the Fab Four. They're the only ones that seem to have some sort of existence beyond the championship, and that's probably largely built on the fact that there's four of them in there rather than just one. So she's demanding a title shot for Paola, and that basically becomes an issue between Maverick and McClain. So now it feels like here's another extension of a David McClain feud. I say a David McClain feud because generally when this happens, the focus is towards him. David, do this thing for me or we have problems. That type of thing. Which is basically what happened here. I want a title shot. Give me a title shot. Need a title shot. Let me have a title shot. Same thing that we get out of most other people. But within this, of course, he gets up and we got to address each other. Well, you didn't win against Santana Garrett. She beat you last, many 6 weeks ago. And so she's got to essentially earn it. I looked at the match that was following this promo segment, and my note was Paola Mayfield has been rendered just one of the girls now. Whatever special she might have had has gone. Not saying that she isn't good or entertaining in the ring, but there's nothing special about her. That portion of her career in WoW has been nullified. She is just one of. So I don't understand what the point of them putting out press releases or any of that other stuff that they did with her or talking about, well, she's got, X amount of TikTok followers and she was in reality. They didn't do anything to try to take advantage of that. Has she been on some interview circuits promoting the WoW? I've seen her do one, and I think it was in L.A. So I'm not sure if that is what I would consider a big coup. As far as I have researched, it's not as if K-Cal seemingly reaches out to them. I think they have a relationship between the station, but it's their local market station. And they're usually airing their interviews on a digital tier. You can get them online, when they're done with it, obviously. But I just did not see what they gained from Mayfield as a, quote, celebrity of sorts. It just did not seem like they got anything on the end of that with her alleged star power. Has the ratings, and that's nothing. We'll never know because they don't release it. Have the ratings gone up because she's there? Who knows? But it doesn't feel like she is anything special. It just feels like Paola Mayfield, the Colombian GOAT, which they seemingly cannot say her name without doing that. She's just one of now. That's all I get from her. She's just one of. But we get a match out of this, and who would be coming out the ringside but a brand new WoW competitor. One Catalina Speed. Taking a cue from 1992 Gimmick Fest of the WWE and coming out as a race car driver. Because, why not? Because it's a natural extension of professional wrestling to just jump off into racing. And she's coming out and she's accompanied by the world's greatest attorney, Sophia Lopez, who's looking as lovely as ever. And we're happy for her that she's back and doing her thing. But as much as I love Sophia, she is completely defanged. Yeah. Let's just start with the match. Is a good match. It's comparable. I didn't have problems of any sort watching it. I didn't feel like it was a great deal of like, oh man, this is terrible or whatever. There's moments in it, obviously, but you can expect that with most matches, or at least most matches that air here. Anyhow, back to the point with Lopez. It's hard for her at this point to do something of use. I'm sure she's a well-loved person backstage and they want to do something with her, but I don't know what else they can do. She just came off of surviving cancer, so it's hard to be like, all right, well, let's just slot you back into being a heel. You could do it eventually, certainly. But I'm sure they didn't want to do that now. She might not want to be a heel, but without her being a heel as a manager, she doesn't have much to offer. And it's not as if I'm saying this to like, all right, well, you need to just get off. I don't know what you do with her at this point. Because, and I'm trying to say this without, I don't want to sound insulting, but she's not a strong enough promo to where she could speak for most of the people that she's out there with outside of Tormenta, because I'm not sure if Tormenta's bilingual like that. At least she hasn't illustrated that on television. So in that case, then yes, because she could more or less act as a translator. But she's not going to sit there and talk people into watching the show based on a promo that Sophia Lopez cut. The best times that I've ever seen her speaking to someone was in a pre-taped environment. When she was, sitting there talking about, we're going to win the tag team championship. I shouldn't even have brought that up. But so we're going to win the tag team championship. She was talking about Las Banditas. But without that, she can't give a staggering promo. She can't really cheat at this point because she's a babyface. And she's also, all due respect to Sophia, I don't know, sometimes her managing might be in question at points. Is the best way that I could put it. Like at the end of this match, if we just go through the match. First off, the story here is that Lopez found Catalina Speed. The old manager traveling around the world and I found this person. So I guess she went to a racetrack somewhere and decided that, hey, you would make a good wrestler, so come with me. But there's that. And they go through giving some kind of history. We don't hear word one from either Speed or Lopez. So much like a lot of times, we have to trust the commentators that they're giving the background that we need to know. Speed does well here, but the end of the match is a foregone conclusion. Let's just be honest. I don't think anybody walked into watching this particular match saying that, hey, she might win. Because if there's anything that WoW will do 9 out of 10 times is that they will have somebody debut and they'll debut directly to a loss. Now, I've often said when I saw that, I am not advocating that every single person that comes onto the show in a debut capacity win. But if you have something that you're trying to get out of them and you're trying to portray them as some level of star or competent or whatever the case may be, they should probably at least walk in there to a win. Because I'm sure part of the logic is like, well, if they hang in there with this person that we've established, then it's still good for them. But I'm not sure if Mayfield has established herself fully yet to where that kind of rub is there for her. During the match, there was a portion where it's like, I do not like that they had this overhead camera shot on all things, this being one of them. It was the beginning of the match where Mayfield shoots Speed off. She sends her in. And as soon as she gets to the corner, we're talking about Speed, she's already springboarding up to the second rope. And then Mayfield comes charging in after her, so you know that she was going to miss it because it was completely telegraphed. That was painfully obvious when you're looking at it from an overhead shot. If they had it where it was in the camera angle that they ended up in, the camera in the corner, you wouldn't have seen when Mayfield started taking off the run after her in the first place. But, that's, like I said, neither here nor there. That's timing issues. And that can and will happen. And then there looked like there was a little bit of a botch that took place. And I want to give Speed some credit. She looked great. I think she wrestles out on the independent circuit somewhere. So I'm certainly not going to disparage this young lady's in-ring prowess. But it is almost as if they were told a spot in the middle that was supposed to take place in the middle of this match that she reacted to regardless of the fact that that person wasn't there. And maybe I am looking at it wrong, but you tell me. There's a bump that takes place where Speed gives a shoulder block to Mayfield. She puts her down. She does her little shimmy and dance. And then she goes off into the opposite ropes, facing the crowd. Mayfield ducks down. She being Speed comes back over, and then she stops as if somebody grabbed her foot, but no one's there to grab it. Now, I don't know if that was what was supposed to happen, but she just stopped running. And it didn't look like she stopped because, she's back up on her feet now. I have to slow myself down. It looked like she stopped because she was expecting to have her foot yanked and she just reacted to it anyway. And of course that didn't happen because the camera immediately then shows that Abilene Maverick is on the other side, and then she just Catalina Speed. She just turns and starts looking at Maverick, who's waving at her. And then Mayfield just gives her a boot in the face. So when I see that, I'm like, all right, was this something that was supposed to happen? Because the end result would have been the same if she had gotten her leg grabbed. She turns around, looks at Maverick, and then she turns back around into a boot in the face. I can see that might have been the spot, but it looks like it just got botched here. Anyhow, that was a bit of a match low point. I doubt that it was enough to disturb the average viewer. It really didn't disturb me, quite honestly. I just regretted that it was there. I was like, oh boy. I just said it. I just talked about it. The botches that take place there do not get applied to that one person. So if she screwed up, they're not going to say Catalina Speed messed up. They're going to say that WoW is just messed up. So anyhow, we move on in the match. Like I said, this is mostly to facilitate a win for Mayfield so that she has some arguable point that she deserves to be the champion. She beats up on Speed a little bit. Lopez is there, and she's looking concerned and whatnot. But at some point in the match, for reasons that I can't recall at this particular time, Lopez and Maverick start jarring with each other on the outside, to the point that Lopez walks around to Abilene Maverick and starts having some sort of conversation for whatever reasons that she's doing it. And, they're jawing back and forth. Lopez has got a little checkered flag thing for her client. It should be noted that Speed has a wonderful belly-to-belly suplex that she applied there. But Lopez just went around the corner. Like, after the suplex, she went around the corner and started talking to Abilene Maverick, and they just started jawing. And then it looks like Speed is trying to do Dolph Ziggler's move. She does the Dolph Ziggler spot where she goes for, now they call it Danger Zone. It used to be known as Zigzag. Mayfield holds on to the ropes, which causes Speed to go down, and then that opens it up for Mayfield to go hit her with her neck breaker. During this time, Lopez is not paying a lick of attention to anything that her client is doing. She is still talking to Abilene Maverick. Did not even look concerned that she lost until after the fact. Like, she's right there in front of her getting pinned and not paying attention to that. And that was disappointing. But like I said, this was a foregone conclusion, so it wasn't anything that was unexpected. I just was a little disappointed. It's like, could she not at least, could you not have her concerned or focused on the match instead of sitting there yelling back and forth with Maverick? But Mayfield wins. She pins Catalina Speed with a neck breaker. And then Maverick gets back on the mic afterwards. So we got some more annoying talk. And her annoying voice. And basically she says something to the effect of actions may be taken against Wild. Like she was going to, your people need to call my people, and if they don't, then my people is going to call yours. And in somewhat of a threatening manner. So I guess this is where we get the introduction of the ad that we saw months ago of some other lawyer that's going to show up and possibly sue him. I don't know. Time will tell, and I'm not looking forward to it. But I also wrote these two things down. What does this match say about Lopez as a manager? Now, again, I like Sophia Lopez. But this return to WOW has not been fruitful for her on screen. We're talking on screen. We're not talking about money and whatever she does behind the scenes. The persona of Sophia Lopez as an on-screen manager, this has not done well for her. She has not only been unsuccessful as a manager. It's like when they leave her, then the success starts. So I don't know what to make of her as a manager. Go back and look at the Banditas. Maybe the best run, it wasn't like they went on just a string of undefeated victories, but maybe the best run that they had is when they turned their back on Sophia and then started winning. Tormenta. She leaves Sophia Lopez, turns babyface, she starts winning. And now you got this new face that's coming in, and as soon as she brings her out, she loses. And you can probably go back through more matches and see, God damn, how many times did she manage somebody right into a loss? There's a lot of that. And it goes back to my train of thought. It's like, I don't know what this says for her as a manager. her track record is not good in that regard. But the other thing, and I talked about it beforehand, was Maverick's voice. It is becoming harder and harder to take. And it may very well be because of what I said then. Maybe in short doses is fine. But listening to her drone on for anywhere longer than 2 minutes is a bit grating. And I know that we only got more of that to go. It's not something I'm looking forward to either, but, you know, time will tell. Maybe she'll readopt the Barbie Hayden voice or she'll straighten up, but I doubt it. Before we continue, I feel it necessary to point out, I guess, my version of an editorial correction for the previous podcast recording. I mistakenly said that the Alliance had lost to Holiday, Cella, and Kalaki. I honestly have completely forgotten that the Alliance won by disqualification. You know, I don't know what that says to me in remembering that. You know, maybe it wasn't important enough. I don't know. But it was pointed out to me. I was like, no, wait, you know, they did win. I was like, oh, yeah, you know what? You're right. They did win. I'm embarrassed that I didn't recall that. But they did win, and I said incorrectly that the Alliance had lost to them, and this was the match with Gianni. At least storyline-wise, they tried to make it out like she was getting revenge. But then, you know, when I realized that, I was like, well, that just make it worse. I'm like, what is she having this match for? They already won. Yeah, they won by disqualification, but why is she coming for revenge? What does she care? They already beat him. It should have been Cella. I'm going to get even with you or something like that. But I just wanted to make sure that I put that out there. So, you know, to the person that gave me the correction, we'll refer to her as the Queen Bee. So, Queen, there you go. Yes, correction made. The next match, Fury and Miranda Mirage taking on Kara Kai and Ashley Blaze. My first note to this match was, where's Siren? Wasn't she the manager of this team? Which apparently, I guess, is no longer the case. And I imagine that they would want me to say the magnificent Miranda Mirage, but I have a very difficult time wanting to apply that to her. This begins with the recap of Terror Strike being injured. And I'd apply some air quotes around the word injured. Because that injury angle is embarrassing. As a wrestling company, anybody that was involved in that angle should be embarrassed of it. I mean, seriously, they should be embarrassed of having to try to put over that nonsense. She was injured. Like, so, yeah, okay. Meanwhile, on other companies and other shows, you're seeing people getting their legs pilmanized and thrown into plexiglass and heads slammed into steel cages and stuff like that. And here she is, she being Terror Strike injured in a sharpshooter and a couple of love taps to her shin guards. Anyhow, I guess there's no point in going off of that. So it's still a worthless injury angle. That's basically what it comes down to. It is a worthless injury angle. And it just made, I guess this new hodgepodge team of Ashley Blaze and Kara Kai put together. And the same rules apply to Terror Strike that I just said with Sophia Lopez. What does this match say about Terror Strike? Because, well, first off, the Dojo Defenders, I don't remember them doing anything of any significant note. Like, I'm sure they won a couple of matches here and there, certainly against the Brat Pack, but everybody beats the Brat Pack at this point. Much as I love them, but they beating them is not some stellar accomplishment at this point. But by my recollection, the Dojo Defenders did not necessarily have a staggering win-loss record themselves. But Terror Strike's gone, and now they're starting to win. So, again, I don't know what this necessarily says for Terror Strike. I replaced you as a partner, and then all of a sudden, I'm doing great. So, anyhow, the match here is just, I guess, an introduction of Blaze and Kai as a team. And they look well as a team. I will give them that. They still look like a bit of a hodgepodge, but they look fine. It starts off with kind of rotation of the heels. Mirage starts with Kai, and then she gets flustered by taking a kick, and then she goes tagging out. Mirage looks like she's ready to laugh at any given moment that she's in the ring. I don't know. I mean, look, I understand that she's just probably apt to smile because she has a lovely smile, but this ain't the time for it. So yeah, they do this kind of little rotation of getting one out, and Fury tags in, and Fury gets caught in a tandem move, then she tags out, and the Mirage comes back in. And here comes the first spot in the match that I was like, all right, well, this clearly was something that was worked out ahead of time, and it shows. Blaze hoists Mirage up on her shoulders. And she is holding her for who knows what. We'll just assume that she was trying to go for a TKO. We'll assume that. But we can't really tell what Mirage is doing because their backs are turned to the camera. But judging by the hands and where they're positioned on there, she doesn't rake the eyes until, the very end of that. But the problem that I had with it is that Blaze essentially had to walk herself backwards close enough to where Fury would get the tag to Miranda Mirage when she didn't have any reason to be walking her backwards in the first place. So she walks her back. They make a tag. Fury comes in after the eye rake to Ashley Blaze that we didn't see. And then the heels start taking control. And they maintain this for a good while. The heat's on Blaze. Until we get to the end. And she is able to make that great tag off to her partner, Karakai. The heels held her in the corner for a good while, and I do say that I love the leap spot because it looked like a leap of desperation, as it should. A tag match is supposed to be trying to get across there, and they're supposed to be trying to cut you off, and they were trying to cut off. She being Ashley Blaze leaps out of the corner when the heels make a tag. So Mirage is now the legal person in, and she's trying to desperately get over there. Mirage grabs the ankle, stops her. But then Blaze turns around, gives her a kickoff, and is able to get over to Kai, and then now it's Kai and Mirage. Kai comes in and gives Mirage a couple of double chops to the chest. I'm not sure why Mirage stayed up on her feet at that point. I don't know if they're trying to sell her being tough or not. But Kai eventually gets her down. She goes for the cover. Fury stops it. This, of course, makes Kai start attacking Fury. She's firing off forearm shots. Mirage is still down. The camera's not on them. The referee isn't paying any attention. And then Blaze comes in. Blaze comes in behind the ref's back, and then he turns around to see that. And she hits Mirage with the TKO and gets the cover for their team. The babyfaces basically had to cheat to get the win. Now, look, I know that there could be the arguable case of, well, they did it before the heels did or something along those lines. That could be true. But it should preferably be a case of the heels did this thing, XYZ, preceding the babyfaces giving them a taste of their own medicine. Here she just came in and she just hit her with the move so that Kai could get the pinfall on her when she got back in. Whether you think that that's appropriate, good, bad, or what have you, there is something to be said for the subtle psychology of it. And I think, just my opinion, it might have worked a little better. One, again, the camera didn't really catch it. That's a production issue. That's not a talent issue. They should, if whoever's running the camera isn't there during the meetings about, okay, how we're going to do this, or that's not being related to them in some regard, like, hey, when she does this, make sure you capture them, when she hits her finish. And yeah, you got the end result of it. You did see the finish get popped. But you didn't see, Strike coming to the ring because, not Strike, Blaze coming to the ring because the camera's locked in on Fury and Kai. So you missed a little bit of that. You got the punctuation at the end. You just didn't see the setup for it. So again, the baby faces go over because they had to use some chicanery. And I think it just would have played better had the heels had some obvious heelish tactics that the babyfaces wanted to turn around on them. But now Blaze is thrilled, I guess, because now she's no longer jobbing out to everybody that she steps into the ring with. She comes in and she basically tackles her partner with this hug. I mean, she's almost about to hurt this girl. But clearly they're happy on camera, like, hey, we did it. And all the drones in the audience are smacking their thunderclappers around and pleased as punch that the babyfaces won. And the referee's like, all right, we got it, yay. And then then we get to where I wrote down on my paper, this is a complete angle alert. I was like, I know this is going to happen. I don't know who. I can expect there's going to be they're given targets, them being top tier. And like, something's about to happen. It's very clear something's about to happen because they're walking up this ramp backwards for 10 seconds. And I know on paper 10 seconds doesn't sound like a long time, but in TV terms, 10 seconds is a long time. They're on camera and they're just, all right, guys, we did. I was like, why are they walking up the ramp backwards like this? And that's why I said, okay, this is a complete angle alert. Because no one would do this. No one would just, all right, we're not going to pay any attention to where we're going. Yeah, they walk up backwards every once in a while, but they don't do it for that long. And so you knew full well that the second that they was up there that they were going to get jumped, and that's exactly what happened. No surprise there. They get up to the top of the ramp, and then who comes out of nowhere but, oh my gosh, all three members of top tier. And they attacked them, and they applied dual sharpshooters. And it's applied by Candy Crush and Campanelli as Glory Glitter is jumping around, doing jumping jacks, and showing her a clipboard and whatever. So this is going on. McLean gets up for, this is where I had the biggest problem on the show, or at least one of. McLean gets up at the commentating booth. Now, keep in mind, they already talked about, well, I gave them a fine. And that'll, more or less like that'll show them. I made them pay for their transgressions the first time. I made them pay money. So let's stop with that. I think it's safe to say right now that fines in WoW mean nothing. They don't mean a damn thing. He has said that he gave a fine like a week or so ago or previous episodes. Top Tier came out like it didn't bother them in the least. I tried to apply a fine to Abilene Maverick to make her leave. $5,000. Called out their money amount. Still didn't want to go. Had to be forced out. It's like money doesn't apply or matter to anybody there other than the rednecks that show up on that show because they don't know how to deal with money at all. The mother truckers, oh, we don't have that kind of money. Everybody else is like, okay, $5,000, big deal. And we go on this based on their actions. Their actions dictate that the money means nothing. Now, we don't know how much Top Tier got fined because he never said a number amount to it. But whatever amount it was, it clearly wasn't enough. They didn't care. Not only they did not care, they came out and did the same thing that got them fined in the first place. So then we go to problem number 2. He's the boss of what is something alleged to be someone attempting to injure someone at the top of the ramp. Doesn't do a thing other than yell on the microphone. We get me officials out here. Why would you even want to work for somebody that was like, this is the best you can do? Look at that. I'm up here getting strung out. I mean, in your universe, this sharpshooter is a leg-breaking maneuver, apparently, or, enough to injure you. And that's all you're going to do. You're just going to yell at them and say, well, they need another fine or something like that. You couldn't yell up there, hey, you need to let them go, you're fired. Or security drag them out of here. None of that. Just standing there like an idiot, yelling on the microphone, give me some help. And it feels like I have to repeat this on a week-to-week basis. This is all the reasons why he should not be at the commentating table as the guy in charge. It violates logic. Every time he picks and chooses when he wants to be authority and when he doesn't, it violates logic. It doesn't make this look any more dangerous or any more desperate a situation when he cannot do anything about it. Talking about an angle or an injury at the beginning of this match, if you were to take into account, take my opinion out of it, because I think the injury angle sucks. I think it's awful. I think it's just the most ridiculously basic injury angle that you could possibly come up with. And the fact that it was approved by two people that collectively been in the wrestling business probably 60 plus years is just insane to me. But take that out of the equation. Let's just go with the idea that, hey, it's still an injury angle. They are still attacking these people. They are still trying to hurt them. And he makes no effort other than to stand there and yell into the mic. Doesn't threaten them with their jobs. Doesn't say, I'm going to strip you of the titles. Nothing, none of that. Just, I need help. And then let's talk about the help. So who comes out there? Well, it wasn't the goddamn Beach Patrol or Spring Break 24/7. They got saved like a week ago, and nobody came out there from the locker room to lift a finger to help them against Top Tier. Not one person. But barring that the roster did not help them, the babyface roster, or at the very least, the persons that they saved a couple of weeks prior. The officials come out, and this is the worst of it. The officials come out, and they are completely emasculated. The two guys that are standing there begging and pleading with Coach Campanelli and Candy Crush, let him go now, let him go or else. I mean, I said that Lopez was defanged. These guys were completely defanged. The young lady referee was back there, but she didn't do much. She just kind of drifted off in the background saying, stop it, let him go. But these two are just standing around in front of them like, hey, guys, stop that. Let him go. I'm telling you, stop it. I'm going to count. 1, 2, you know, like. So I understand that part of the logic that they may be applying here is like, well, we don't want these guys manhandling women. Okay, that's fine. But in the context of what you're saying right here, these two, Blaze and Kai, are in a situation that if they stay in it in your universe, by your rules, by what we've established on WoW, if they stay in this hole for a lengthy period of time, and that's the only thing that I give credit to in this particular instance, that it wasn't just a sharpshooter on for 10 seconds and then like, your legs broke. They actually put it on and cranked down, and it looked like they were trying to hurt them, which is what should have been the first thing for not Ashley Blaze, Tara Strike to begin with. Should have been that. Should have been, if you're going to use a sharpshooter for that, apply it, crank it down, hold on to it, and make them make you break. But they didn't make her break. They just stood around yelling. And they being top tier, are yelling back at the referees. I mean, you don't hear them, but you can see that they're like, in so many words, like, well, what you going to do about it? I mean, it's almost like they're more or less just standing in front of them. So like, no, I'm not letting go of anything. Make me. And they have to stand there like two idiots and take it. And the point that I was getting at with that, I understand that they probably want a guy manhandler, but this is supposed to be a desperate situation. It's supposed to be, if they stay in this too long, their knee might get dislocated, the leg might be broke, the tendons might be torn, or whatever injury that they want to apply to that situation. That in and of itself should have them like, no, we got to get them off, or at least try. And they don't. They didn't try to do anything. They didn't try to get them off other than just stand around and like, hey, don't be doing that. It's ridiculous. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, because I heard it mentioned maybe a couple of years ago, and one of the podcasts, I think it was Cornette. And I'm going to say that his idea should be applied. If you are concerned about seeing that kind of action in a women's match, create you a female security team. So at least they can come out there and do something. Instead of having these referees stand around, hey, stop. Instead of that, they can at least have somebody that can come in and do something for them. Other than just stand and watch and hope and plead. And it was just ridiculous. And they just came off. First, McLean acted like he was powerless because he didn't get up from he stood up, yelled on the microphone, but he didn't do anything beyond that. He gets in the ring for everything else. Why didn't he go up the ramp like, hey, let him go? The referees couldn't do anything. They were on camera talked down to. Okay, yeah, the show isn't about the refs, but the refs are still the authority in the ring and within the context of the show. And if they being top tier attempting to hurt these people, they should have been pulling them off. Or you get somebody on there that can. Or at least make the effort and not have to look like I got to stand here and wait. And this was just terrible. Terrible. And this is every reason I'm like, yeah, I have no faith that WoW can accomplish a feud of any sort. I have no faith that they have the ability to make an angle make sense. And even when they do have an angle that makes some level of sense, if you give them enough time, they will screw it up. And this is one of those times. Moving on, next segment. Scout Parker and Xena Phoenix. I have already said what I feel about both of these individuals. And truthfully, I like them both. I just do not like Phoenix's demeanor, particularly when she's speaking on the microphone. She is every bit the embodiment of the Living Participation Award. I mentioned before that the comparison was, you look at the Mayhem commercials, that is what he is. He's the living embodiment of mayhem. Everything that can go wrong and will, right? Which is how he adapts to, these individual situations. That's what Xena Phoenix is. It says everything is perfectly fine. Well, I gave it my best. I'm trying to help and to elevate all women, and I want to join the ranks of the great legends that's been in WoW and the champions and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Scout Parker, I like, and I think that she could, and I'm not going to say could, does, had the potential to make this thing work. It being her gimmick and a run in wrestling somewhere. I'm not saying that she can just jump in and like, I'm going to WWE. I'm not saying that. But, I could absolutely see her on a independent circuit somewhere. I doubt that she would be able to take the Scout Parker gimmick with her, but, assuming that she could, it's not like we haven't seen sillier things on the indies. And oftentimes, even the silly gimmicks can be gotten over to the point that people will pay to see them. Scout Parker's biggest downfall is that she has said very little about who she is, why she's there, what she changed her name for, and all of it at this point is absolutely pointless. The commentators have spoken for her and on her behalf on multiple occasions, but removing that, you don't know anything about Scout Parker. And the last thing that we saw was, okay, she was tired of losing as Ice Cold, so reinvent herself to being a loser as Scout Parker. The change meant nothing. It didn't do anything for her. Didn't give her a reasonable run. Didn't elevate her in the least. Had a tag team partner for all of 2 episodes, and then she's back to this. So I expect Sprout Greens to miraculously and mysteriously pop back up a couple of months from now. It's a waste. And in my view, it's a waste that they even bothered to rebuild and reconstruct her persona on camera. The match in and of itself, I am certainly not going to take away that Phoenix and Parker are physically capable in the ring. I don't know if Phoenix fully has her personal psychology down yet. But, I think it's something that could be gained. But when I say that she doesn't have that personal psychology, it's because she exists in this bland, like I said, everything is fine. I just learned, and it's better next time. She has no fire to her at all. And she's just another one of the WoW faithful that I'm just happy to be here, and I just need an opportunity, and David help me with it, whatever the case. She hasn't gotten to the point that she's begging him for a title shot yet. But looking at the match, one of the things I can recall in there, I like the narrative that they tried to portray within the course of the match, and that Scout Parker attempted to beat Xena Phoenix at her own game. Started working on the arm, and she dropped some great knees across the arm, did a nice arm breaker. And she focused on it. Stayed on the arm for a good amount of time. So there was a story that was being told within the ropes, and for that, I applaud them both. Now, there are often times that I do not expect it from WoW and WoW talent. I expect them to just go in there and do a series of moves, then somebody wins, and then they go about their way. But Parker was focused. She stayed on the arm even when she catapulted her up to the top rope. She grabbed Phoenix's arm and roped it around. I would like Parker to work on some of her facial expressions in there, because she, much like Miranda Mirage, at times looked like she's just ready to burst out in laughter on occasion. But again, the narrative, arm bar, working on the arm, dragging it across the ropes, pulling it, yanking on it, trying to pull it out of socket, all that good stuff that she was doing in the name of doing what Phoenix does, but doing it better. I mean, I know that's not what she actually said. I'm just saying, she was attempting to do what Phoenix does by working the arm. And then we got the spot where she missed her move. Now, I think this would have played much better. It still was good. And it being Phoenix gets up on her knees and Parker's about to do that like low hurricanrana. She goes off to the ropes. She gets ready to apply it. Phoenix leans backwards, so it causes Parker to fall and, bump on the mat. The thing that I was going to say is I think it would have played better if that move had been established as one of Parker's regular occurring moves, like a big signature that she does, if not the finish itself. But I think her springboard moonsault is her finish. But in any case, just having her educate the audience that that's something that she would normally do. And I think it would have played much better if they knew it. Now, they applauded because they saw the screw up, and it was very evident that, hey, she just dodged that thing. Good for her, right? But it just could have been a bigger thing. That's all. That's just my personal opinion. So Parker tries, she gets back up on her feet. Phoenix is up. She's in the corner. Parker tries to charge it. She gets kicked in the arm. Good by Phoenix. Then she does her normal rotation of moves that attack the arm. Arm drag, Japanese arm drag, and then, what is it? Like she did like a slice on the arm, which I don't even know if I would have wanted to take that. So that's a good thing for Parker to have done it. She gets a reversal on her. She being Parker, and she goes back to the arm until she comes off of the ropes and she's caught again. And when she comes off of the ropes and she gets caught with the Firewoman's carry takedown, Phoenix immediately goes for the arm bar. She applies it. She gets the tap. And I was just talking about this with the Queen Bee also, is that Phoenix kind of holds on to those things just a little bit. It wasn't as bad here. It wasn't nearly as bad as when she did it to, who was that, BK Rhythm. but of course the referee's out, hey, you got to let that go. And, she does. And Phoenix wins the match, and she gets to go off with another checkpoint in the win column for Xena Phoenix. The next segment was a promo for the main event, which is Garrett versus the Classmaster. The match that Santana Garrett earned because she asked Dave McClain for it and she got it. The next segment, Sibley Scoles, another backstage interview, and she's setting up for Xena Phoenix and looks completely surprised that she shows up to this interview that was already scheduled. Like, we're here to talk to Xena Phoenix. Here she is. Like, were you not expecting her? And I wrote down here at the time, I was like, it's Scoles Xena's personal interview. What is this, like the third time that she had some level of interview with her? And this is another one of those points where I'm like, look, she's fine. She has a good demeanor and presence on TV. She's just not a good wrestling interviewer. And even you regular listeners would know that one of my coworkers, who I refer to as Maestro in here, is a guy who at times will poke holes in everything on his show. He'll look for a problem. But in this case, he came back into the room. He watched this, and without asking me, without looking at my notes, he said nearly exactly what I wrote. I wrote down, this is more like a sit-down type Q&A interview rather than a wrestling interview. Now, he came and was like, man, that was like an interview that needed to be on a podcast or something. I was like, this is long. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It just did not come off like this was facilitating anything. This should have been, that interview there should have just been a sit-down 2-minute Q&A if they were going to do these two like that. Is it bad? No. But it's not what the wrestling show needs. It sells Phoenix's background and her goals, but, nothing else is on the horizon. She still doesn't show any personality. And like I said, it didn't come off like, hey, we're trying to set up her next steps and where she's going. It came off like, hey, let me ask some questions about how's your life and career and what about this? And like, if nothing else, let's just put it this way. It could have been a better segment if she being Scoles, her goal was to put over the arm bar. Let's just say that was the marching orders that she got going into this. Well, now if you're putting over the arm bar, then you're putting Phoenix over. And it's selling her move, the danger of it, how she applies this. Is it helping her march her way to the championship or whatever the case may be? But when you're just asking random sideline questions, and that's how this comes off, because that's probably the background she comes from. When you're asking random sideline questions, yeah, they could be, nice to have, but they don't facilitate anything. They're not helping Xena Phoenix. They're not pushing her forward. They're not putting over the move. She's not involved in the angle to get over, but if she were, she would need to be ask some questions that would help get the angle of the program over. None of those things happen. This is just this is a Q&A. And nice enough, young lady. I'm sure she does a phenomenal job when she interviews for, what does she do, the Raiders, and when she's at a boxing event. I'm sure she does a phenomenal job there in WOW, or I'm not even going to say in WOW, in wrestling, because WOW probably doesn't care. But in wrestling, she does not do the scenario, the situation that she's in justice, in my opinion. And why is she holding interviews by the door? I mean, just Just thinking about it. Now, granted, she's not in front of the door that's going to swing open on her, but I was like, well, why she didn't? They have an interview section. They've already shown it. So what's she lingering by the door for? It only makes me feel like they probably took Xena Phoenix, had her walk in, interview. All right, walk back out and we'll do another one. They probably did. Like, you know, it wouldn't shock me if they did like 3 or 4 of these in a row. Just to, like, let's get something to make sure that we have some interviews that we could throw in anywhere. Because she don't look sweaty, don't look like her hair is messed up. But now, granted, the match was short, but she could apply this interview probably at any given point, mostly. I'm not gonna say that, you know, you could just stick it anywhere in any episode, but mostly. Next segment, Big Rigs and Bourbon. They come out, and of course, David McClain is addressed because you have to address David McClain to get whatever it is that you want. Big Rig asks McClain for a match against Holly Swag, and Rig essentially says that she'll get Swag one way or the other. You know, like if you don't give it to her, then I'll just go back there and beat her up or whatever. Which I'm not even sure if that was a bad idea. It's like, all right, well, look, it seems like you're going to get her one way or the other, so fine. McClain can be a little bit overdone, and this is probably one of those cases where like, yeah, you got to teach your daughter respect. You know, like he goes off into showman mode when he's trying to sell a match. And he is selling it. But this match is a big deal for WoW. I wrote down it's not a big deal for me, but it's a big deal for them. And I only said that because this match is already available on OVW and several other locations. So it's not like you couldn't find this match somewhere. The match, it already exists. It's not listed under Big Rig, Betty, and Holly Swag, obviously. It's listed under Amazing Maria and Holly Hood. And it had much more build to it. And it had some level of circumstance. There was stakes in the match that was applied. Here is just it's revenge, not a bad motivation, but you know, there just were no stakes applied. The next segment, Samantha Smart and Classmaster walk down the wild hallway. Smart cuts her Smart promo. Delivered with conviction, but I mean, I will just go ahead and say that it comes off to me like a promo that she sat down and wrote, and that's, you know, I got to make sure that I apply something on here that makes me sound smart. Now, I ain't saying that she isn't, but to work in the idea that, well, you know, in order for Santana Garrett to accomplish this, she would have to find a wormhole, but I doubt that she's smart enough to do that. I'm like, well, okay, now let's again talk about the promo that you're delivering. Who in the planet of, you know, the history of the planet has ever discovered a wormhole? Who's been smart enough to do that? That's not a promo that you should apply to somebody, especially if they were standing in front of you. The only good thing that came out of this is that it was in the back and nobody was able to debate that. That would have been the first thing out of something. I was like, well, let's see you do it. Since you Miss Intelligence or Samantha Smart, you show me, you know, educate us all as to how to produce this hypothetical thing called a wormhole. But and I only say that because it's applied as Santana Garrett isn't smart enough to do it. And it sounds good. It has conviction, but there's no meat to what she's saying, nor is it anything that the average person out there is going to really gravitate towards or care about. This does not sell the match. It doesn't do anything to drive interest towards this main event whatsoever. And the Classmaster just stands around making faces. I don't know at what point in her time there she just turned into an absolute mute But that's all she does. She just walks around making stupid faces around Samantha Smart and agreeing to whatever it is that she's saying. And I look at these two when they're coming down there. I was like, this right here, this image, them walking down the hallway of all the wild posters is the sell for this show. It's main event. That is the sell right there. Her, the 6'2" Classmaster standing next to her 6'1" manager. So her height means nothing in this. And she's in this ridiculous outfit and she's making these stupid faces. Like, who is buying this? What other company on national TV right now has a joke comedy character as their main prize, as their champion? Who else? Nobody. Because nobody's that dumb to do it. This is supposed to be your money. And I would have thought, and I've said this a couple of times, it's not like she couldn't have been something. I compared her to Megan Bain over and over and over again. Because they're roughly about the same size, but they took two different paths. Bain created a persona for herself that got her attention, that got her noticed, and that was taken seriously. And despite the fact that she had a horrible debut, in my opinion, in AEW, at least at this point, she is now looked at as, okay, she's a threat and she has star potential. She looks good. That's generally the response that you get from Megan Bain. Classmaster could have been that, but the gimmick, the title, the outfit, the hat, the cap, the gown, the book of knowledge, all of that nonsense that she has just makes her off to be a goof. And I don't know what to say about it because it's not, I keep trying to point the finger towards, okay, as Lois Grain, she works differently and she doesn't come out making all these ridiculous faces and mugging the camera and whatnot. She doesn't do that then, but she also doesn't work big as Lois Grain. I would like the best thing I could apply to her is that if you could create a hybrid of her two personas and slam them together, you could probably get something out of her. Get rid of the Classmaster crap. Lose the aerobics instructor gimmick that she has on the indies. Find a different look, make her dominant, and make her work as such. And honestly, and I'm sure this would not be good for Samantha Smart overall, but lose her as a manager. And either that or stop harping on the fact that it's the 6'2" Classmaster. If she's not going to be with somebody who helps illustrate that point, then it's not a point to be brought up. Her manager, in my view, negates the idea, well, she's 6'2", David. Well, Nigel, look at her. This is the 6'2" Classmaster. It doesn't mean anything. Because her selling point is a selling point that her manager has. The manager is supposed to be hyping her up. That should have been the overall objective of any promo that Samantha Smart's selling, hyping her client, the Classmaster, up and how she's going to dominate and beat the crap out of somebody else. Forget trying to work in some cute stuff about astrophysics and hypothetical theories. Just to try to apply that I'm smarter than everybody else. Anyhow, that was the promo in the now Wow Hallway. I guess they've upgraded from the Wow Stairwell to the Wow Hallway. Next, Santana Garrett cuts the typical Wild Babyface promo. It's fine, but it's not anything that gets me excited for the match. I'm sorry to say it. And I also would apply this. I saw Santana Garrett do something on her Instagram. She was walking around with a fanny pack or something, just being silly on camera, really. But it was like in that little segment that she did on her own time on her own Instagram, it was like that showed more personality than anything I've ever seen her do anywhere else. I'm not even going to limit that to WoW, just anywhere. But then the first thing I wrote was like, where's this personality at? Why do we not see this on Wild's TV? And Wild's TV is just, hey guys, I'm going to do this for, the fans and my father. And it's just normal babyface stuff. It doesn't get me excited for it. Doesn't talk me into like, I got to watch this. The stakes were not there beyond the fact that it was a WoW championship, and I could care less about the WoW championship. I don't care who holds it. I don't care how long it existed. I don't care who gets it next, and I don't care who had it. I will begin to care when the championship is treated a little bit more sternly. The Classmaster alone holding it draws my attention away from it. So we go to the next segment. That's Genesis walking out unexpectedly, even though they had her music queued up in the entrance video. She says she wants to be at ringside during the title match to see what it takes to get a shot, and then she does what everybody else does, got to sit next to Dave McClain. I am starting to believe that it's just a mandatory thing for Wild talent to do that. But then we get the promo for next week. There's the mother versus daughter, Holly Swag versus Big Rig Betty. I wrote, this could be the Wild match that they need for attention and press, but then also said, not likely. So that leads into the last bit of the show, the main event, championship match, Santana Garrett versus the Classmaster. The main event of the program. Good old Santana Garrett, wrestling's Wonder Woman or something there or other, and the Classmaster, along with her manager Samantha Smart. But I feel the need just to rewind just a second, just to say this, because I know I just went down the list of like, I don't care about who has the title, this, that, and the other. When I say that, what I am trying to get across is that there just has not been a moment, or justified or not, a champion that has done value for WoW. It just, if I ask somebody, generally speaking, about the Intercontinental Championship, like, has the title been elevated? Is this person, who do you remember as a champion or something there along those lines? You could probably fire off 4 or 5 different names for a variety of reasons with a variety of different matches that, in your eyes or in most people's eyes, fans and whatnot, could look at and say that it helped this championship. Gunther, for instance. His run was phenomenal. He was probably one of the great recent Intercontinental champions that we've had. Braun Breaker right now. Even The Miz at one point in time was, talking to town with that championship. And you can take it away from that. You can point at some, women's championships if we want to keep it on a, I guess, quote, level playing field. You could probably point at the current WWE Championship and say, well, Belair and Banks headlined WrestleMania. That meant a lot. Or Rhea Ripley, becoming what she became. Liv Morgan coming into her own as a women's world champion, and so on and so forth. Not to disparage the matches that have taken place, but there's not a lot of people that you could point at in WoW's history that carry that weight even for that company, because most cases you can't really say that there was some sort of great angle, feud, rivalry, anything or the other that helped you or made you want to see this match or this match stand out amongst all other matches. I keep saying it's rarely about whether the match was a solid match or not. It's often about whether that match made you feel something. Did they build you up to a point that you cared who won or who lost? Or was their reign so incredible that they, had phenomenal match after phenomenal match that made you like, oh man, they really did something for this. And the only person that you may be able to point at with that as of this recording, Tessa Blanchard possibly, well, definitely, but, she kind of bit herself, or shot herself in the foot, or whichever example you want to, or euphemism you want to apply, because, her reputation kind of soiled that run, and she's not talked about, and then there's not a lot of people in their history that would make you talk about it. Terry Gold was a champion in WoW and WoW only. In a wrestling capacity, I don't know what she did outside of that. But, she was there, and that was it. And once WoW was done, she was done. And I know I went down the line with this before because I remember talking about it. It's like, I love Lana Starr as a manager, but as a wrestler, she was not the champion that company needed to try to make people perceive WoW as something grand. So when I go down the line, even with people that I like, Santana Garrett, Jungle Girl. I love me some Jungle Girl, but she won that championship in a down period. So did Santana Garrett. And it's not like either one of them, as much as I like them, were firing off just match after match that, made people pay attention to the show. To where, you just had to pass around, no, you need to watch this match. And none of that happened. And I would lump Ozzy into that too. She had good matches, but she just didn't have matches that would turn people around. And that's a lot of weight on anyone's shoulders in there, especially given the parameters that WoW makes the matches up with. But when I say that, and I just wanted to take a moment before I go into the main event to clarify, when I say that, I don't care who had it, I don't care who holds it, I don't care who's gonna, that. As long as WoW is doing what WoW is doing, I just do not perceive a championship match to make me feel like this is important. I expect to see matches that are good and fun to watch, but past that point, I don't think there's any value on them. It's nothing nobody goes back to. It's not some sort of masterclass. It doesn't serve as a 15, 20 minute, 30 minute, however long the match would be, infomercial as to why you should watch this show. And I hope that makes sense. Like I said, it's not necessarily the people. It's just that title means nothing to me. And as far as most wrestling fans are concerned, again, right or wrong, justified or not, the WoW Championship, much less WoW as a promotion, mean nothing to them. It's never addressed. It's never talked about. They're never included it. They can have a list of top ranking women wrestlers right now, and they are never brought up in that conversation. Not one of them. And the only time that you even get anything close to that is when they address somebody who wrestles outside of WoW. And they may mention that, oh yeah, and this person wrestles in WoW too. But they'll list them as, let's Holly Hood, Haley J, let's say. And she's on a list of top, indie stars. It's very likely that they would do that. They were like, she'd be listed as Holly Hood, Haley J, and then they'll say, and she also works at WoW as Holly Swag. So yeah, it's those things. Those are the reasons why it doesn't mean anything to me. All right, back to the match. That was a big sidebar, but back to the match. So I mentioned before they went into their promo, Genesis walked out unexpectedly, and she comes and sits next to Dave McClain. They got to go through the commentary, and then you got Santana Garrett. She comes out. And then we get the Classmaster, the 6'2" Classmaster that they love bringing up every chance they get. And to really drive the point home how useless it is, Samantha Smart stands in front of her, not only in the intro video that they do and completely covers her up, they do it when she's standing on the ramp. So let's just highlight the fact that, yeah, she's 6'2", but she's just as tall. So anyhow, I mean, other than the fact that she's got this ridiculous cap and gown on, you probably wouldn't have seen anyway, but it's all black, so you can't really picture out in the background as she's standing there, but that's not important. They come out and she's doing what the Classmaster does best. She's making every dumb face that she can as she's walking out the ringside, as she shows the book to Samantha Smart, I guess whatever pictures of real estate that book actually is. And they got the pyro and all that good stuff. And like I said, she's putting on a show of, hey, I'm the champion. And then they cut back to these ridiculous close-ups that they have her making these ridiculous faces on their show. This is your champion. Oh, boy. And I want to be nice to her. I mean, so I try my best to separate Lois Grain from the Classmaster. But holy crap. The camera mugging is just insane. Anyhow, she gets into the ring. She holds up her prized book because that's far more important than the championship. But then she holds up the championship, following that right along with the book. So I guess it grew in status. And then we get the foreshadowing of the book. He brings up, anytime I've ever noticed them bring up something that they've never talked about before, I was like, all right, we know where this is heading. Zane brings up the Book of Knowledge and how it helped her win before. I was like, at that moment, I promise you, at that moment, I was like, that book is going to come into play and it's going to cause her to win, this match. He is already, because this is not the first or only time they have brought up something not the clear fucking blue as a complete foreshadowing, and then that thing happened. This is just another one of those. And not for nothing, how many times do we have to hear the 6'2" Classmaster? I mean, I get it. She's tall. But I don't know how much of a selling point it is. I mean, what difference has it made? And like I said, it would have been better served if she had a diminutive manager to help highlight that. But that's not the case. And I will give credit here. The one thing that does make it work, if you could just look at the match in a vacuum, she does work big. Which is what I wish she did on the indies, but, that she might not have that kind of control over the match, granted. But she at least works big here. She, tries to be a little bit more domineering, for lack of a better term. But I don't know. I cannot go on with it's like 6'2" is her first name or something. So, yeah, it just becomes somewhat annoying at times. But, so, the match is going on. With Santana Garrett at some point gets the advantage, obviously. And then Samantha Smart runs around to the we'll call it the camera side of the ring and distracts Santana Garrett for some reason. And then she just casually walks over to the Classmaster, and Classmaster drapes her throat across the ropes. Now, the draping of the throat across the ropes, no problem with. It's a reasonable spot. It happens, and it works. I just didn't understand what the distraction was for. She didn't provide anything to that. I mean, it was just like, we have to have you do something, so go over there and get her attention. It did nothing. If you removed her seeing Samantha Smart from that little section of the match completely, it wouldn't have changed a thing. It was just, seriously, it was just a pointless spot. She did not provide a distraction that her heel champion took advantage of. She just went over there and she provided a distraction for nothing. Anyhow, the Classmaster now gets control. She is applying the collar or whatever the thing is, her submission hold, and just beating up on her at this juncture of the match. But and whereas I said that I like that she works dominant there, the one thing that I wish there, at least, that she would minimize on is making the faces. And I give her a hard time about doing that in the promo videos and when she's pointing at her head and stuff like that. I just wish that she would chill out on that. You know, it's like I say, it's hard enough to sell wrestling in general. And it's hard enough for a wrestling company, whomever they may be, to sell their brand of wrestling to the general public because the general public's been educated that WWE is wrestling. And anything else outside of that is just subpar. So they already have those hills to climb. Having her being the Classmaster do silly things, even though she's serious in the ring, give her credit for that, but having her do silly things throughout the program does not help. I'm completely convinced of that. It doesn't help. And I stand by that the potential is there. Is there. She just needs, well, honestly, I think she needs to be out of that company. Because as long as she's there, she's just going to be encouraged to do silly shit. But if she just was to go someplace else that they can, help her out, or I don't mean help her out like she's helpless, but try to give her to try a different presentation. Okay, you tried this thing. How about we do this? That's just somebody that can see her with a different set of eyes and maybe apply a fresh coat of paint to her. Anyhow. So, before we go off of that, the Classmaster's in control throughout a good chunk of this once she had the little semi-distraction spot that took place earlier. Santana Garrett's doing the babyface thing. She is struggling and she's fighting and she's not giving up no matter what the situation she gets placed in. So she is doing the old college try, the old hero thing. And meanwhile, we got Genesis sitting at ringside, Samantha Smart at ringside, Genesis at the commentary booth. So at some point, we got Garrett, who has begun to turn it around and starts to neutralize the Classmaster with a sleeper. And of course, while she's walking around with a sleeper on her, she's wagging her finger like, no, and walks her into a turnbuckle. I think she backed her up into a turnbuckle at least twice. And then she tries to charge in and she runs into the foot, I think twice, before she's caught with a head scissors, something that she tried earlier in the match, she being Santana Garrett, and was caught with the immense strength of the Classmaster. So that was a little bit of a callback there, or at least she tried some variation of it, I should say. And then we got to get the point in my, how smart I am smart. Garrett tries to roll Classmaster up. Classmaster holds on to the rope. She shoves her off more or less, and she's like, aha, I'm too smart. Then Garrett nips back up and she nails Classmaster. And I guess it could make the audience believe that she could have won it, but I don't know if she's established her super kick here at least as a finish or a potential finish. So I don't know if I would have been on the edge of my seat, like, she's almost got it. It just here, I don't know if I've ever seen her utilize that as such. Now, here's the part of the match where I just I was like, that doesn't really work for me as a finish because it just seems absurd. So she just goes for the cover and she does not get it. So that's the first thing. And it's not that she didn't get it because Samantha Smart got up on the apron and distracted her. Samantha Smart got up on the apron, but that had no play into that. Classmaster kicked out. So it's not that Garrett would have won had she not been distracted is just, she powered out on her own volition. And then Garrett sees Samantha Smart stand on the apron. So that was kind of the first thing that I had an issue with. Maybe issue is a strong word, but you know what I'm saying? I wish it had been the other way. Like, Garrett hits the super kick. She's got the Classmaster down. She goes for the cover. Then Smart's up there and she distracts the referee. Not distract him after the fact. So the referee goes over to Samantha Smart for some reason because she hadn't done anything. She's not near the either competitor. Garrett actually has to walk over towards her. So the ref, while Samantha Smart is holding her bedazzled yardstick, decides that he needs to take it away for some reason. On paper, I understand what was going on here, but I'm like, she didn't do anything yet. She didn't interfere with the count. She didn't make it up in time for that. She wasn't anywhere near either one of them, either the Classmaster or Garrett. Like I said, Garrett had to walk to her. And then for just whatever unknown reason, the ref just decides that, hey, I got to take this yardstick away from you, even though it didn't come into play and it wasn't even attempted. So now he takes this, and we know what it's all about. It's only there to give him a reason to turn his back. But it was, in my opinion, this was just set up bad. It didn't work for me. This could have potentially been saved if she had gotten up on that apron sooner or the referee had saw it before and got up. I don't know who I would point at to say because I couldn't see the entire ring. I just know that Smart was there when the camera panned back and we got her in the view. But again, had nothing to do with that particular finish. She didn't stop it. She didn't interfere. She didn't take a swipe at somebody or attempt to take a swipe at somebody. No one was there for her to take a swipe at. So the ref taking the yardstick away is just, I guess, in their universe, a preventative measure. But when do you see referees do that? Because if that were the case, why not just take it when she comes down the ringside? If you're going to do it without the merit of them attempting to have used it, then why do they come out with it at all? Just stop them right there. Give me that. So he takes it. And like I said, we know what it's for. He goes over, and now I got to bend through the ropes and turn my back completely so I can get the attention of somebody sitting on the side to tell them, take this yardstick from me. And of course, no referee can feel or hear the stuff that's going on behind him. So I'm going to sit there and do all of this as Samantha Smart takes the book, remember the foreshadowed book, slides it into the Classmaster. She gives her a DDT on the book and then slides it out of the ring. And then 1, 2, 3, she wins the match. I mean, I guess DDTing her on the book would be good. I mean, it is a nice visual finish. But honestly, she could have just booted her in the face with her own finish and probably got the same result. And she is holding her arms up, she being the Classmaster with a successful win. And I need to say this. I get on her for mugging the camera and making silly faces and all of that stuff all the time. This end was the first time I saw it different. Her look was a look of dominance and anger. And I loved it. I said, give me that. Do that. Be the dominant monster that you can be. Don't be being silly and whatnot. Be that. Now, yeah, she could drift off into silliness sometimes when she's doing it. But it was so much better. It was so much better. And, of course, now at the end of this lends way to Genesis having a stare off of sorts and a couple of words with the Classmaster Smart. Now, she doesn't go into the ring to do it. She stands up at the commentating booth, and they just kind of have a moment with each other. Previously, I said Genesis was like a hamster on a wheel, doing a lot of effort, not going anywhere. And then they followed with this. So, like, I fingers crossed this will go somewhere for her. But then it begs the question, who is the babyface and who is the heel here? Is Genesis going babyface? It would be an easier thing for me to accept that than the Classmaster becoming the one, if for no other reason that she has a manager and she doesn't speak, so we don't know, and we've never seen any sort of conflict between the two of them. But Genesis becoming or potentially drifting off into babyface, I could see. She at least gave some promos that put her opponents over, even though she in the end put herself over. But I concerned and have very little faith that will happen. I would like to see, some sort of progression between either party, but I don't know if that's going to take place. It's up in the air. It's like a lot of angles and things right now is up in the air. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but maybe like, 2? We don't know necessarily at this point where Genesis is going. And I would say the same thing probably applies to Miami Sweet Heat. You don't know where they're going at this point. Because, they could drift back and forth between babyface and heel. But we will address that on the next episode, which I've already seen. But don't worry. We're not going to just double it up right here. I'm going to break these up so that it is a little bit more palatable and easier to find. And, of course, with all the chapter markers that we tend to do to make these episodes easier to maneuver on your time. Overall, the show was structured good, and it had a nice pay. At least better than most episodes in my view, pace wise. But it did nothing for me in the efforts to try to make me care about the main event or the next episode. Not that not that there wouldn't have been a curiosity factor, at least for their main event, Swag and Betty. But like I said, I think some of that for me, and I will only speak for me in that regard because I know that there's some people out there who have not seen their previous work. So my reasons for not caring would not apply, and I acknowledge that it would not apply to a good chunk of the WoW audience. But it applies to me because, like, I've seen this version of it happen already, and I honestly do not see exceeding that. Well, at least I don't see WoW exceeding that. Maria and Haley probably could exceed it. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but I just don't think within the parameters of that show that they can. So, again, from my viewpoint, because I had seen the Netflix kind of advertised version of this, the OVW match, which still on YouTube, obviously, and has a good lead-in video package to let you know why they're in that position. And it does a good job of setting the tone, setting the table for what you're about to see. I had no doubt, and I'm going to say that in past tense, I had no doubt that it was going to be fair between the two. But again, looking at it from one week to the next, it just didn't do that for me in terms of, hey, you need to watch this. It's going to be one of a kind because in my viewership that one of a kind match had already happened. But other than that, I mean, I thought the pace of the show was fine. You had your little things in there that I could have done with some other version of, not necessarily that they were horrible or bad, but I could have done with another version of that interview segment. I just don't think Scoles is capable of providing that. I could have done with another version of Phoenix's response in that interview segment, but that's something that she's going to have to grow into. I could have been fine. I was perfectly fine with the Scott Parker Phoenix match. I could have done it with another version of at least the production, if nothing else, to the Kai and Blaze match versus Fury and Mirage at the end. Because if they had shaved off 5 seconds, they had shaved off 5 seconds of them walking backwards up the ramp, it wouldn't have been so blatantly obvious. And, that was, pretty much the show. I will forego the reading of the press release because as you're listening to that episode has already aired. So I'm not feeling like I need to do that. Like, you guys need to know what's coming up next week. You already know it came up next week. It's past tense for you. So we will skip that. And I will go directly into recording the next episode, but you will hear that as a separate thing. So we will close this off by saying you can catch everything that I and the WPN, the Women's Pro Wrestling Network, provide by going to WPNWrestling.com. It is a center point. All podcasts, most videos. Most videos go there, and it's on a 24-hour day, 7-day a week stream. It does not turn off, does not change. There's other stuff in it, but it's always there, and the wrestling is always there. And of course, if you happen to be listening to this in some sort of a podcast platform, Podbean, Spotify, etc., review and or rating is always appreciated. If you're on YouTube, do the YouTube things like, share, and subscribe. And with that, I close by saying that this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.